Okay, hey Dave. Well, welcome to your own podcast.
Good to be back.
We thought this, you and I were talking, and we thought this would be a perfect time to kind of go over some things that happened in the spring, touch upon what's been going on this summer, and then what to look forward to in the fall. And we know that coaches are very busy, and you go from this crazy spring schedule right into summer camps and recruiting, or hopefully vacation. So I think that our general feeling is that there were a bunch of things that maybe coaches missed that we can help them with in a podcast in a more interesting way than just reading emails.
Yeah, we know the coaches enjoy the podcast, and we did a AMA, I think in December, that was well received. So I think we'll try and maybe do this at least once, if not twice a year, and different ways to get information out to the coaches. So thanks for having me on.
All right, well, let's get into it. So let's start with looking back at spring 2024, which was a big time for you because you were named CEO. So can you please just take us through the process of what that was like for you? And yeah, what is it like to be the next ITA CEO?
Well, just to be clear for everyone, because I keep getting messages from coaches, which is amazing. How much they're looking or excited for me being named the CEO, but I actually don't officially start as CEO until January 1st. So Tim Russell is still our CEO. I'm CEO designate, but my role hasn't changed a whole lot. Myself and Tim are maybe joining more calls together, and it'll be a transition process over the next few months. Tim and our chair of our board, John Vagosen, were very thoughtful about how this transition might take place. And even if I wasn't named CEO, they were going to bring on the new CEO early and help them through that transition, so they don't just January 1st they start and we lose some momentum, or things get lost in the shuffle. But yeah, it was a long process. It was over several months. The ITA hired Bowlesby Associates, who I think a lot of coaches would be familiar with or heard of. They do a lot of athletic director searches and baseball coaches, football coaches, etc. So they're very well regarded within the college athletic landscape. And so I believe there were about 40 applicants for the CEO position, and several interviews to narrow the field down, and I survived each cut, I guess. And yeah, it came down to final interviews in Dallas a couple of months ago, myself and two other candidates. And I thought I did a good job, and ultimately, yes, I won out. And I believe the board are excited to have me in place, and a lot of coaches as well. And I think my background as a coach, but also having worked in several other industries as well, in finance, in commercial real estate, also working in other areas of the tennis industry as a director of sports at a large sports club. My educational background, I have a master's in sports administration. And then also, obviously, all the work I've done at the ITA for the last several years, the connections I've made with other industry leaders, etc., it all converged to me being named the next CEO, which I'm very excited about. But yeah, a long process, and there's no sitting around and celebrating or anything like that. There's so much work to be done. Working at the ITA is like no other industry or organization I've worked for. It's extremely intense. There really is no downtime, but I have the energy, the enthusiasm, the excitement, to put in the work that's required to operate organization of this size, and all the things that we're trying to do and hope to do in the future.
Awesome. Well, congratulations again. I know the staff was really excited, and also it was like agony going through that process as the staff members who all wanted to know what was going to happen. So,
Yeah,
um,
thank you.
well, well, the next topic then is something that's been a big news over the last couple weeks, and that's been our transition to Dunlop balls. So if you can just talk about that a little bit, who made the decision? Why did we decide to do this after so many years with Wilson? And what are some important things for coaches to know?
Sure. There's firstly, I guess this isn't unique, right, in the sports world. I mean, I'd imagine coaches are used to maybe every several years they're changing clothing brand or shoes brand based on the agreement that the athletic department put in place. So they switch from Nike to Under Armour, etc. I think where the ITA and Wilson are very unique is that it's a 50-year partnership. You just don't hear of 50-year partnerships any longer. And these decisions are not made lightly. I think sometimes our coaches don't always fully grasp just how much thought and effort goes into a decision like this. And I think sometimes our coaches get a little reactive. And I know as a coach, I did as well, you know, announcement go out and you go, well, I didn't hear about this. How was this decision made? But now being on the other side of it, I see just how much thought and energy goes into that. And so this would be a combination of our ITA staff, our board of directors, which are made up of, you know, coaches, but also people within the athletic, collegiate athletic industry, athletic directors, etc. And then business people that have a connection to college tennis in some way. I'd encourage our coaches to go look at our list of board of directors if they haven't seen them. It's just an incredibly impressive group of individuals. So we get input from all those various stakeholders before making that decision. And then, you know, we're on contracts. And I think some coaches were, well, why did we wait till July 1st? Why didn't we tell them April 1st? Well, we're under contract with Wilson until June 30th. If we make some public announcement, we're setting ourselves up for potential liability, legal ramifications, etc. I think our coaches can appreciate and understand that. In an ideal world, we'd be able to give them a year advance or something like that. That's just not feasible in today's world, the way these contracts are written. And so I think a lot of schools, their new fiscal year occurs on July 1st. Yes, we have programs that have some deeper pockets and maybe we're able to order balls ahead of time that I believe they'll be able to use in a bunch of different ways. So we encourage programs to use Dunlop balls now going forward for their non-conference matches. The ITA will obviously use them for all our events, regionals, All-Americans, national indoors, etc. But to avoid confusion going forward, in an ideal world, all coaches would use the Dunlop ball for their non-conference dual matches. Conferences will make their own decision. The NCAA are under contract with Wilson for at least another year. If there's any changes there, the NCAA will update us and update all the coaches moving forward. I don't think this is unique to tennis either. As a former player myself, you get used to using a different ball every week on tour or even at the junior level. So I think this isn't necessarily a bad thing for college players to use different balls. And even still, I would imagine over the years, we'll get into a lot more consistency. I think the Dunlop ball will be used more and more. But there is definitely this transition period. And for any coaches who are upset, you know, because they've already ordered Wilson balls, we apologize and wish there was another way. But hopefully we get through this year and we build a momentum from there. But yeah, coaches should definitely read the FAQs that we sent out. I mean, we get to see who reads the emails, who clicks on what links. Maybe our coaches don't know that, but we need to make sure more of them are clicking on the FAQs, because I'm getting a lot of questions from coaches, and I know our staff are as well, about things that are listed in the FAQ. So coaches, please read those. If you have more questions after you've read those, let us know. And obviously, if you can't find them, let us know. But we'll continue to update coaches going forward, and hopefully everybody's clear on all the nuances of this. And we're excited about a great partnership with Dunlop going forward. They're extremely enthused about college tennis. They recognize the momentum we have built up over the last few years. They've also really doubled down on their efforts. You know, they're the #1 ball on the ATP tour. They've been used on more WTA events now. They're going to be used at the Olympics, the Australian Open. So they're really making a lot of inroads internationally, and hope to grow their brand here in the USA a lot more going forward.
And I think, you said it at the beginning of your answer, like change is always difficult. Even when I was a coach, I remember when we switched from Adidas to Nike, I was like, for some reason, it was such a huge deal to me. After the first year, I didn't even remember that we were with Adidas. So you
Yeah.
get used to it. And yeah, I think everyone will be fine. And the pricing is great. I think at $74 a case, you can't beat that.
Well, just to be clear, that's a big reason why we made the change. I mean, we hear from coaches all the time the challenges they have with expenses, and there's certain steps we can take, but something like equipment is obviously an expensive item, and just the deal that Dunlop are offering them, not just on the balls, but 50% off all accessories. I actually ordered a Dunlop racket the other day. I'm going to switch over. But I think after shipping, tax, etc., it was like $107. I mean, that's incredible. And then the strings, that's obviously a big expense, especially on the men's side as well. I mean, 50% off quality products. And just to be clear, coaches are not going to find better deals. They're going to have third parties,
Mhm.
online retailers say, hey, we can order this stuff for you. The pricing that those online retailers get from Dunlop is what our coaches are receiving. So they're getting the wholesale price. And so if they go with somebody else, they obviously have to get a cut. So they're not so to be able to cut out the middle person and go straight to Dunlop and take advantage of this is, over the years, the coaches are going to see some significant savings, which is what we want to see, and the main reason we made this decision, Lauren, at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think even the process is much easier, right? You can order online, you have your code. So even logistically, it's gonna save them a few minutes, not just money in their pockets, but some time in their lives.
Yeah, it's so straightforward. I mean, we have an ITA code here as we need to order balls or whatever it is for events. And like I said, I just ordered the racket, and it couldn't have been easier. And so yeah, hopefully coaches read the FAQs, go to the coaches resources, get their promo code. Even if they're not making a big order, maybe they order a couple of things, test out some of the strings. Obviously, Dunlop will be at our coaches convention in November. They can maybe test out some things, speak to some reps. We're going to have some webinars here in August around our Dunlop giveaway. So if coaches aren't familiar with that, check their emails. So Dunlop are offering basically an all-expensive paid trip to the ATP finals in Italy in November. And so it's just for college coaches. So this isn't open to the public. So your chances of winning are maybe higher than it would be if it was some grand prize offering to anybody who puts their email address in the Dunlop site or something like that. So coaches, please enter that. And we're having some webinars. Even if you don't want to be part of that giveaway, you can still join the webinars and learn more about some of the Dunlop products, so you're familiar with them and can start educating your players on if they're looking to switch racket or string, why they might consider Dunlop.
Hmm. Perfect. So let's get into a little bit of the highlights of the spring season for the ITA. What were some of the biggest things that stood out to you this past spring?
Yeah, there's so much, Lauren, and we're moving at such a fast pace, and it's sometimes hard to reflect on everything that has been going on. That's what I've loved about the ITA. We're constantly trying to improve, upgrade. I mean, I was coaching, I guess 8 years, 9 years ago now at this point, and so to see where the ITA has come at that point when I was finishing up my coaching career to where it is now, and just being a part of this constant daily improvement. I mean, everything we do, we review, we take feedback. I mean, there's so many things that coaches have shared with us that we've gone ahead and implemented. And we can't do it all. We can't do it all of the time, but we're constantly making enhancements, and we'll continue to do so under my leadership in the new year and going forward. But I think we've definitely this year try to focus a little bit more on the student athlete, and speak to them a little bit more directly. We had the first year of the Student Athlete Council, which was a pilot year So we've 10 representatives from all the different divisions, giving input to us as to what are some of things that we can do for student athletes. And one of the things that keep cropping up is around mental health. And that's when we went out and sought out Zama Health as a partner. So all student athletes now have free access to the Zama Health app. We'd love to see more of them start using it. I think, again, maybe that got lost in the shuffle during the springtime, as you referenced, Lauren. But as coaches are getting ready for the new season, please, please, please share this app with your players. I think they can really benefit from it. They're constantly upgrading the app. There's a lot of tools in there to help them. It's designed specifically for student athletes. This isn't for the general public. It's designed by a former student athlete, track and field athlete. And so they've taken feedback as well from our student athlete council as to how they might improve the app. So that's been very exciting. We now have a mentorship program for student athletes where we're trying to match former college tennis players who have gone into every industry imaginable and match them with student athletes who are entering their final year of college, their final year of eligibility, and trying to give them a leg up in whatever industry they want to go in. The Rising Coaches program that you've put together for student athletes who want to enter the college coaching industry is amazing, and hopefully that will facilitate an easier transition for those coaches. As you and I have referenced on this podcast before, that transition, you think you know what you're getting into, but you really don't. So that's going to be very helpful. And then our College Connect page, I mean, speaking to future student athletes, that's something we really haven't done in the past. We've done some Q&As at events, our indoor championships or our fall nationals. We might have a panel of coaches, but we haven't done it in any recurring, consistent way. And so our College Connect page is now giving future student athletes or prospective student athletes at least a starting point to understand that process and how they might go about securing a place on a college team or receiving a scholarship, etc. So again, coaches, if you're not familiar with that, we'd encourage you to go there. That also has a WTN tool, so a player can go in, enter the WTN, and then a list of schools will come up based on their level. And so coaches, again, it's important that you keep your profiles updated, your rosters updated, so that when a prospective student athlete clicks on your team, they have some relevant information there to get them started. So that's been very exciting that we've started that process. And again, we can't do it all at the ITA. I know, people say we should be doing more of this, more of that. We have to be very selective, but I think this is a great starting point and things we can build on going forward. And then I guess we talked about the mentorship program. A lot of the people we'll be connecting the student athletes with are members of our alumni network. It's something that we relaunched earlier this year. I think we're up to 20 chapters around the country. We're doing a number of events. We're going to do one in New York in August. We have one at Winston-Salem coming up at that tournament. But we have smaller chapters just doing, very just fun get-togethers. It might be on the tennis courts. It might just be at a local bar. It could be a watch party. It could be going to support a college tennis match. But we're really breathing life back into that after COVID. And Alicia Smith, our ITA community manager, has put a lot of time and effort into that. But yeah, so more of those kind of, touch points with prospective student athletes, their families, the student athletes during their experience, and now after graduation. It's a role we know we have to play. Just to what extent, I think we're still trying to figure out, but it's a good start.
And then can you talk a little bit about the wheelchair tennis national championships and also our new agreement with the USTA?
Yeah, so the wheelchair national championships, so the USTA had their collegiate wheelchair national championships for a number of years out in Lake Nona. Part of our agreement with the USTA is us taking more of a leading role in collegiate wheelchair tennis that we're best positioned to lead that based on what we do for the other divisions. So we now say we have 7 divisions of college tennis: NCAA Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, NJCAA, 3C, 2A, and then wheelchair tennis. And so we have the national championships, worked with the USTA. We're going to continue to have it out in Lake Nona. We're going to actually in the future separate the team and the individual event, similar to what's happening in Division 1. So the individuals will be in the fall, team will be in the spring. We're also doing rankings, awards. We have an operating committee. Again, all the things that we're doing for the other divisions that help put an infrastructure around those divisions, we're putting in place for wheelchair tennis. So we're hoping to grow that. We've done a couple of podcasts on it. We've done some webinars, but again, coaches, if you have a facility, the ability to maybe service this group of athletes, please let us know. If you're, maybe it's a project of an assistant coach wants to take on, maybe it's one of your student athletes. Even I know I had a student athlete who ran a wheelchair program her senior year, did it herself every weekend. So there's lots of possibilities out there. It's just we need somebody to get these things started. And the ultimate goal is to see wheelchair tennis become a sponsored NCAA sport with NCAA championships. And but the NCAA has been very supportive. We had the Final Four of the singles championships actually played during the Division 1 singles championships out in Stillwater. We're going to do the same in Waco at Baylor for the D1 singles championships this fall. So yeah, making a lot of progress there, but again, lots of work to be done. But yes, if again coaches miss the agreement with the USTA, we signed a first agreement, 5-year agreement in 2021. A lot's changed in the landscape just in the last few years. So we've actually renewed the agreement or updated the agreement. Actually, we tore up the old one, took a lot out of it, and started afresh. And so that agreement is kind of retroactive from January 1st, 2024. So it's another 5 years. A lot of focus on coach education. This is an area that the USTA are becoming more involved in. Lots of concerns about who are the facilitators of the future that are the coaching. The average age of a coach in the private sector is getting older by the year, similar to officials. And the USTA knows that the sport can't thrive unless you have a fresh group of, another generation really of coaches coming through. And currently we don't in this country. So it's something they want to put more attention to, something that we can hopefully facilitate in the future. But there's other pieces around technology, continuing to upgrade our technology going forward. That's been very helpful to us. Technology is extremely expensive, as I've learned. It's kind of like building a house. It takes longer than you anticipate, and it's more expensive than you anticipate. So having some assistance from the USTA has been extremely helpful. But there's other pieces around that: facilities, community hub grants. There's a facility survey that has gone out to college coaches. Again, this helps the tennis industry as a whole, because the USTA want to know where their courts, how they're being utilized, indoors versus outdoors, different parts of the country. Are there certain areas of the country that need more investment than others? So college coaches could be the beneficiary of that. So again, any information that coaches want to know, what grants are available, please contact the ITA, and we will help, connect the dots and put them in the right place. But to have the USTA involved, Lauren, this is something that didn't happen for several decades. The USTA weren't particularly interested in college tennis. They've now, been more involved than maybe they've ever been. They understand the importance in the ecosystem. If college tennis doesn't exist, obviously it hurts the tennis industry here in America, but globally as well. And then also, they've made a big investment in national championships. They had the 3 combined championships a couple of years ago, or 2023, just over a year ago. I know they're interested in hosting NCAA tournaments again in the future. I mean, I think last year they might have spent about $1 million or so, Lauren, on those combined. It's hard to get especially with so much turmoil in the college athletics landscape, it's hard, it's going to be harder, at least for these next few years, to convince athletic departments that they should invest in hosting NCAA championships for any sport, really. So yeah, we're excited that they're continuing to be very interested in this space and finding ways to be involved without stepping on our toes, the ITA, or thinking that they know better than the coaches or people that live in this space every day. They're here to support rather than to, make any big decisions or final decisions. They're there to help when they can help, which is an amazing position and agreement and level of collaboration that really should happen more in the tennis space, that maybe doesn't happen as much internationally as we would hope.
Mhm. And I mean, you talked about the last year's NCAA championships at Lake Nona and having participated there, that was incredible. It was such an awesome experience. So if that's something that other coaches can experience or student athletes, I think there would be a lot of support for having more combined championships at Lake Nona because it was very cool for college tennis.
Yeah, the feedback was great, from what I can tell. I mean, they do surveys after these events, and I think the average score was 4.5 out of 5 or something like that. And so and look, I was in Stillwater this year for Division I championships. Chris Young and the Oklahoma State staff and the NCAA and the NCAA tennis committee did an incredible job. And I think these events continue. They learn from one another. Uh,
Mhm.
they get better each time. There's lessons learned, etc. But yeah, it's the level of investment that the USTA can make versus some athletic departments. Just again, that might change in future years when all this turmoil and lawsuits, etc., hopefully have come to a conclusion and we all have a little bit more certainty going forward. But yeah, like I said, if ever we needed a group like the USDA and to have a very productive relationship with the national governing body, because I didn't know this before I joined the ITA, but a lot of coaches associations uh, at the collegiate level do not have very good relationships with their NGB. And
Mhm.
so we're in kind of this unique position that we want to continue to take advantage of. And look, any agreement has to be beneficial to both sides. So I think the way our agreement is set up, it is beneficial to both sides, and hopefully will continue to be so for many decades to come.
All right, well, now moving into some current information because we've been sending out a ton of things to coaches in the last couple weeks, whether it's awards or updates or contests. So let's kind of talk about the news of the summer. You referenced earlier the Dunlop giveaway. We've been posting it on social media. I've been checking the registrations for the Zama and Dunlop presentation, which is one of the requirements for entries. Your chances are very good right now to get a free trip to Italy for two people if you enter. So I do know that our coaches like to wait a little bit until the end. So I'm hopeful that there will be more entries, but actually maybe I'm not hopeful because whoever's entered so far, I mean, like your chances are really, really good. So, but that being said, coaches need to enter and because it's so ridiculously easy. Like you already have to do two of the four requirements that we're asking of you. You have to update your roster, we hope, at some point this year. Um, you probably typically wouldn't do it in at this time of the year. I think many of us used to wait until, you actually have to do it. And then you need to pay your team membership or you need to renew your team membership. And that's better to do sooner rather than later. Anything else you want to add about the Dunlop contest, the giveaway, any of the FAQs?
Um, no, I think that was a great infomercial for it. But no, I mean, look, this is one of the other benefits to our agreement with Dunlop. I mean, they're giving us this award to do on an annual basis. So hopefully, again, it gets some traction going forward, and it's open to all our coaches. I think initially it was maybe conceived that it might just be coach of the year. And so if you're coach of the year, I'm sorry that we have 11 coaches of the year. So, or maybe more than that. Anyway, 11, 12, 13, something like that. So to give it to just one of those probably wouldn't have been fair, but yeah, it's open to everybody, and something new, something exciting, and one lucky coach is going to win it and bring a guest and have an amazing time, and hopefully they'll share some pictures with us. But yeah, please enter, coaches.
Yeah, and if you don't win, then you can take a trip to Dallas for the coaches convention instead. So,
There you go. A
okay.
win-win.
Um, can you talk a little bit about the rule changes that coaches can expect for this upcoming school year?
Yeah, so again, coaches may not be familiar with our rules process, and this is kind of the governing body of what we do. We have a rules committee made up of coaches, made up of administrators and ITA staff. They start this process every March or April. We put out a survey. The NCA put out a survey as well about possible rule changes. The committee then starts going through all that feedback, which is super helpful, identifying some themes that maybe have come up over the last year, or what's recurring in the survey, maybe things they haven't got to in previous years. With all rules, right, there's loopholes. And so something they may have never considered before, and now something cropped up during the year, and it's like, wow, we never thought about this. This never happened before. What are we going to do about it? And so, yeah, this year was no different. They've gone through that process. So one of the changes, and it relates to the sportsmanship side of things, because I think we're still having, since COVID, we have noticed an uptick in that, unfortunately. We have more ethics and infractions issues to deal with than ever before, which is disappointing, and hope that trend starts to go in a different direction. But I think last year, most coaches know that the point penalty system in doubles kicked in after one overrule instead of two. And this year, the same is going to happen in singles. So you're going to get one kind of freebie, which I hate that people say that, and coaches I've heard are sometimes telling their coaches, hey, take your freebie. We never want to encourage that. We want to eliminate that altogether. Some coaches could argue that the point penalty system should happen straight away, but Lauren, you and I have coach players who we know just have made a mistake, right?
Yeah.
It's they oftentimes err on the other side, and they're playing balls that are 3 feet out. And so we definitely don't want to go too far here. All these things we try and do, we try not to rip the band-aid off too much, too often. Sometimes we have to, unfortunately, but I think this is a step in a direction that will hopefully resolve some of these issues. But longer term as well, we're trying to figure out where technology comes in. We've gone through an electronic line calling RFP the last year. We've done shadow testing with companies at some of our events. We've done in-person testing here in Arizona with some companies. I think we're making a lot of progress. I would imagine we'll roll out pilots now this next year, so it's not just shadow testing behind the scenes where coaches and players aren't actually seeing it. We're just seeing the results and actually testing it. How's it going? What's the feedback we receive? Obviously, technology prices are, hopefully with any new technology, prices start high and start coming down to a more manageable number, but that's going to help with this issue as well. But we'll have more information to provide as decisions are made. This has to be built into the rule book as well. I mean, some coaches have contacted us who have received communications from these companies saying, hey, we want to put a ELC system in at your facility, but they have to be approved by us. If a coach goes to some system that hasn't been tested, hasn't been verified, haven't gone through the same long, drawn out, thorough process that we have, then we don't know what they're getting in for. So coaches should be patient, even if they have the money to do it. I wouldn't recommend doing it because, you're going to be one step ahead of where we're at. And so it might cause issues with matches being contested. Hey, this ELC wasn't approved by the ITA, so I'm going to contest this match because I lost it 4-3. So we want to avoid all that. You know, I think it will go a long way. As a former coach and player, we know a lot of the sportsmanship issues that arise are overline calls. It's usually where it starts, right? And so if you're able to eliminate that, then I would hope we eliminate most of the ethics infractions that are coming our way, and that matches are played in the type of sportsmanship environment that we're always going to encourage and hope to see. And I know most of our coaches and players as well. It's always a small percentage that cause issues. And so, you know, anything we can do to eliminate that, it just makes the experience for student athletes, coaches, fans better. So that's one rule that coaches should be ready for. The other they'll see is now that all divisions are going to the same timeout policy. I mean, this is something that I know as a coach changed every year. I could never keep track of. I know it's a struggle for our officials. It's our struggle for our coaches and players as well. So we need some consistency there. That's a lot of feedback that our rules committee received. And then also the carryover penalty. My understanding, and I'm not the rules expert, but my understanding is that if a player, you know, ends a match and they smash their racket, that the point penalty would be assessed to the next court at the start of the next game. And I believe what's going to happen now, it'll be assessed immediately. So if it's 30 all on court number 2 and the guy smashed his racket or girl smashed her racket on court number 1, that it will now be 30-40, 40-30 on court number 2. But yeah, coaches should look for those rules. I know, Lauren, you've done a great job sharing opportunities for coaches to test their knowledge, whether it's in the coach education newsletter. I know we did a giveaway last year as well for coaches. You and I took the test without the open book and did very average. I wouldn't say we did well, but not bad for without an open book. So
Well, I had to retake the test because I needed the answers for our Rising Coaches program, and I did significantly better.
good,
So that
good.
was
We're learning, but yeah,
good.
coaches should. I mean, it's something I'd encourage every coach to do at the beginning of the season, probably every January, something to build into their schedules. Just taking some time, taking an hour maybe just to go through the rule book, obviously ensuring they understand any new rule changes. But I think it's just good for them to know, especially matches that don't have officials, or maybe they have just one official, for coaches to have an understanding or be able to reference it quickly. You know, they know where to find it, and they're able to come to an answer, conclusion, so players aren't waiting around 15 minutes for a decision to be made on something. So I just think it's part of a coach's job to know the rules.
For sure. And actually, Anthony and I have already discussed doing another coaches rules test for this year with the new updates. And maybe we can make it into some type of contest, because we did have a lot of coaches take our test last year.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, great.
Okay, so some other current updates. Do you want to get into a little bit about algorithm updates, both for ITA rankings, whether that's just the review of our algorithm or if it's an update? And then also, let's talk a little bit about WTN, because there's been some hot topics regarding WTN and the summer circuit. So
Sure. Yeah, with the ITA rankings review. So again, anything at the ITA, we try to review on an annual basis, something like our rankings algorithm. Probably not on an annual basis, but maybe every 5 years, we want to take a look at it. Any feedback that coaches have is helpful as well. But we did hire a consultant, a mathematician actually from VCU, who's familiar with tennis, has done studies for other tennis organizations through the years, understands college tennis pretty well. You know, it's hard to find mathematicians who also have backgrounds in tennis, etc. So that individual has done a very thorough review, identifying strengths, weaknesses, areas of improvement. Again, this is something that we would work with our coaches on. We'd probably do some shadow testing if we were to make any adjustments. We'd do shadow testing next year, so we have something to compare and then show coaches, hey, these are a few tweaks that were made in the algorithm. This is the final result of that. We could also go back several years and again do testing with the new algorithm versus our current one, and see. There's no perfect solution. I mean, for me as a coach, I always felt really good about the rankings. By the end of the year, we know at the beginning of the year, there's shuffling, there's some yo-yoing that happens. But by the end of the year, you're looking at it, the teams that you've played, teams that are around you in the rankings, and you're usually like, yeah, that's if I'm really honest, that's kind of where I belong this year, or our team belongs. And so yeah, that's something that we're doing. Again, when we have updates, we'll let our coaches know. With WTN, so we're working closely with the ITF. I'm on a call every 2 weeks now with the ITF and the USTA, providing feedback from the college tennis perspective. Obviously, the ITF is global. They haven't traditionally worked with the ITA. We're not a national governing body, so to say. Their members are country NGBs, and so but they've included us in this project. They know how vital college tennis is to this new rating working successfully going forward. But they also have to take input from their other countries, and there's so many considerations that have to be considered, especially data privacy. Rules in USA are very different. They're very lax here, to be honest, compared to other parts of the country, other parts of the world. I would imagine in the future, I think there's a lot of pressure to improve privacy laws in this country. So it'll be interesting how that impacts things going forward. But they are looking for input from us. We've shared feedback that we've received, things that we've noticed ourselves running events, doing comparisons. We do know that the WTN is as accurate in predicting the outcome of the match as a UTR. Sometimes UTR's a percentage point higher, sometimes WTN is. They're very similar for college tennis. We have recognized, and ITF's very well aware of the gender imbalance. It's pretty clear that on the women's side, some players need to be lower. That's probably going to happen this time next year. They're looking to do more research, have more matches played between higher level men and women. They have a lot of data for kind of under 12, under 14, where you'll see boys and girls playing together more regularly, but not necessarily at the higher level. So they want to do some testing to figure out what that deviation might be between the men and women at the higher levels going forward. There is going to be an algorithm update. I've been told September 11th. Now, if that changes, we'll inform the coaches what those changes will be. But my understanding is they're looking at that initialization number. So if a person doesn't have a WTN, that they recognize that they were initializing players too high. And so they're going to make some adjustments there and initialize players a little lower. And then they've got to earn their higher rating, basically. And then also with some of the junior players as well. I think last year the algorithm update impacted kind of the senior level, so the over 35s, over 45s, etc. They recognized they were too high, so they downgraded them. And I think they're recognizing that some of the junior players right now are maybe a little too high, so those will be downgraded. So I'm sure some junior players and parents' heads will explode when they see their rating goes down. But these are adjustments that, again, UTR had done over the past decade. WTN will do them. All these algorithms, as we said, should be reviewed. Something like the rating, especially a new rating, would be reviewed more regularly. And then hopefully it gets to a more stable position in the coming years. But it's still relatively early days. And we have seen big improvements with the WTN. And like I said, doing all those tests at all different divisions. This isn't just Division One. This is all our divisions and seeing how the WTN is performing. Again, if coaches have a player who they think is too low, they probably have a duplicate account. We have a process. Again, they just need to contact their divisional manager to get that sorted out. But they need to, as we said, update their rosters in order to recognize that, and should do it earlier rather than later. But yeah, we'll continue to keep everybody updated. Again, the ITA, our board, is taking the long-term approach here. This is going to be the global standard moving forward based on the number of countries that are signing up with their data sharing agreements, the amount of data that will be flowing into it. It's just going to be very hard to compete. Any other rating system will have a hard time competing in a legal way, meeting those privacy standards, moving forward. So yeah, we understand that there's going to be some pain, again, some transition attached to this, but longer term, our board still believes this is the right direction to go.
Yeah, and I think also just based on some of the conversations that we've been having, it's like college coaches can kind of help move this conversation along as well by reminding the junior players that they're recruiting and the parents that they're talking to, or even if our college coaches are talking to junior coaches, just reminding them that once these players get to college, WTN is the only rating that matters for them, whether that's to get into tournaments or for seeding. So while UTR might be helpful in their recruiting process still, and that's maybe some of the language that coaches are using, junior players really do need to focus or consider their WTN for when they get into college and how that will impact their freshman year, particularly. Probably once they start playing college matches, it's going to be different. But that first year and the first fall semester will be impacted by their WTN.
Yeah, great point. I mean, once you reach that college age, it's really all WTN, whether it's ITA events, whether it's summer series, seeding and selections, whether it's players that want to play on ITF tours, etc. It is going to be it should be front and center for them at that age. Again, it's going to take a few years. It's going to take the 12, 13, 14-year-old now is seeing WTN everywhere, especially in this country, but internationally as well. As we know, so much international recruiting takes place, and some countries are ahead of others in their adoption, and again, educating their population on it, their coaches, their players, their administrators. And so it's just going to take some time, but the growth we've seen internationally, the improvements that have been made, the conversations that I'm privy to as well. I mean, this is an impressive group of individuals. Some of these conversations are way above my head when you get into the technical side of things, and players' profiles, and how data's being fed in, how issues are being resolved, how they're being identified, etc. It's extremely impressive to be a part of. So I feel very confident that the improvements we've seen over the last year will be, again, in a much better place a year from now, and that will just keep snowballing. The momentum will continue globally, not just here in the US.
All right, well, let's look ahead to the fall. We have a couple new things coming up. So I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. We have a D3 format pilot that's been years in the making. We have the D1 individual championships. We have a coaches convention. I think we have a new Division I operating committee. So let's start from the beginning. Talk about the D3 format pilot.
Yeah, again, that's something I'm an expert on, and I know as I move into the CEO role, I'll have kind of a good overall knowledge, but I won't be maybe in the weeds as much as I am right now. I know, this is something that Corey Brooks, our director of competitions, has really been working on several years. D3 coaches will have, I don't know how many surveys they received at this point, but a lot, both from the NCA, from the ITA, and the NCA and the ITA have worked very closely hand in hand on this. Our operating committee really are the ones driving it. When it comes to format, this isn't something ITA staff, we try and facilitate, but ultimately it's our coaches driving that. And so that was the case for Division One format several years ago. That led to D2 and NAIA, et cetera. Those are operating committee decisions, not ITA staff members. I think sometimes our coaches don't recognize that. That is an area that we're truly a coaches association, and lots of input is provided there. So I know it's been a long process. It's been rolled out slowly with no ad. Initially, there's been pilots done at certain ITA events or ITA sanctioned events. But this year, a full pilot will take place with the NCAA and the ITA adopting kind of what we've traditionally called the D1 format. And there's pros and cons on both sides, and I've seen arguments on both sides. Are both right? Yes. Are both wrong? Yes. I mean, it's just one of those things. There's no true perfect opinion on it. I think some of the feedback through the years has been that sometimes the matches are so long. We have teams that maybe are playing on 2 or 3 indoor courts. There's a lot of focus from administrators on the impact this is having on their staff members, whether it's trainers, communication, SIDs, their coaches, and ultimately the student athlete. If you're 9 hours in a tennis center, on a Saturday and a Sunday, that's probably not the best student athlete experience and everything else they have going on. So, but I also understand that they don't, play as many matches, as many dates. Their seasons are shorter. They want to get as much tennis out of it as they can. I know as a tennis player that I probably wanted to play as much as I could, but I remember coming from Ireland and them telling me you're going to play an 8-game pro set for doubles, and I was like, are you kidding? Like, I don't want to play college. That sounds stupid. I don't even know what an 8-game pro set is. I've never played one. It should be 2 out of 3 sets, but then I play it and I love it, and I think it's the greatest thing ever. And so same when we changed the 6-game, the no ad. Yeah, there's lots of hesitations, but I think you said earlier, switching from Nike to Adidas or other way around, you adapt to it quickly, and you wonder why you were ever concerned about how things used to be. But look, again, it's a pilot. It will happen. More feedback will be provided. Some might love it, some might hate it, and final decision will be made next year. Hopefully, again, NCAA and ITA working together. So you mentioned D1 individuals. This is the first year of the pilot. I know we've been building up to this for the last few years, but this is the first year for Division One separating their individual singles and doubles championships from the team NCAA championships. Mm-hmm. And so again, Division One coaches who are listening, if you're not familiar with the new pathway, we have a microsite that is dedicated to answering your questions. If you can't find it, please let us know. We'll get it to you. We'll have more communications going out over the next couple of months. It's happening for 2 years. I would imagine after year 1, we'll learn a lot. Probably some tweaks will be added to year 2. Again, we'll communicate that. And I think I'm saying that a lot during this interview, Lauren, right? I mean, we're going to update you. We always do, but coaches, for whatever reason, aren't necessarily seeing these updates. And again, I'm sorry if we're sending out too many communications, but we have been told to err on the side of communicating too much versus too little. So coaches, maybe emails are going to your spam. Maybe there was a change in coaching positions. Maybe emails are going to an SID or an administrator and not being sent to you. But if you're not receiving ITA emails, please do, because like I said, there's so many updates. There's so much going on. And there's email still is the best way to communicate that, to get all the information across. But yeah, so D1 individuals will take place this year. We've got our convention. We're doing it on a college campus, I believe, for the first time. And we're doing that again based on coach feedback and also our own pain point with expenses. Running a convention now at a resort, at a hotel, it is so expensive. and we're trying to keep expenses down for coaches as much as possible. We're a not-for-profit, so we're trying to break even on everything that we do. We have lost, tens of thousands of dollars on our convention in recent years, because we've tried to keep the expenses, or the expenses for our coaches similar, raising it very little, but our expenses have gone through the roof. I mean, just it's and you'll look. I mean, if coaches go and look at other professional development opportunities, I mean, registration costs are often $1,500, $2,000, $5,000. We never want to get to that point or anything close to it. So Grand Chen and SMU have raised their hand, are willing to do it. I think it's a great concept. I know it's going to bring the cost down. Dallas is easy to get to. The hotel will be a lot less expensive than it has been in more recent years. We're on a college campus. We always want to try and promote that. They have a beautiful facility there that we hope to take full advantage of. And so again, we'll pilot something. We'll do the best we can. We'll hear feedback from our coaches, and then we'll try and apply it going forward. No decisions have been made on future conventions. We're also trying to decide, is this something that happens every 2 years, every 3 years? Is it like the World Cup or Olympics every 4 years? When is the best time of year? Where's the best location? I definitely encourage those coaches in the middle of the country, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, name your state in that area, who maybe were never able to afford to get to Naples or Orlando. Hopefully, if it's in driving distance, they can come and enjoy a convention for the very first time. That's the other reason why we're trying to move it around to different spots. So have I
Yeah, and
covered
I think
everything for the fall?
I think just the changes with the convention, among a lot of other things that we try, is it's very indicative of what we want to accomplish, which is just trying to get better every day and try to make things better and make these small adjustments. And I hope coaches can recognize that, because I'm sure they do that with their teams and their athletes every year. If you keep things the same all the time, I think sometimes that's great. It means maybe it wasn't broken, but it also might mean that you didn't think a lot about what you were doing, or you didn't get a lot of feedback. So I think it's a great sign that we're trying to change things and test things out, and hopefully it's awesome. But if it's not, we'll make changes for the next one.
Yeah, yeah, and our coaches will let us know, and that's what I appreciate. Again, coaches, look, I've very thick skin. You learn that growing up in Ireland, so nobody's offending me. I love my conversations with our coaches. Oftentimes, I'm able to provide more context, and it's like, oh, I didn't know that, and they have more information to work with. But we're always going to keep trying to get better, evaluate these
Mhm.
things. But most of the changes we made, just like trying to bring down the cost. When we went to Orlando, we knew, we had a sense that the price point was just not going to be possible for a number of coaches, and it wasn't really possible for us. I mean, that was a challenge, but we had committed to doing it, to putting it around the D1, D2, D3 combined, and this is what some other sports tried to do. And maybe we go back to that concept at some point. But yeah, we'll keep trying to evaluate and keep trying to get better.
Mhm. All right. Well, we are almost at the end. We have a couple last things. End of summer. What are some must-dos for coaches from your point of view?
Well, get a little bit of rest if you haven't been able to. The season is sneaking up on us in a hurry here. I just can't believe we're nearly in August, and we know players start coming back to campus, freshmen start checking into the dorms, etc. So yeah, get some rest, regroup. I know as a coach in my final few years, I had a harder time, getting excited for the season ahead, and a big reason why I stepped away from coaching. But yeah, really try and regroup. Yeah, if you haven't evaluated the year prior, and maybe receive some feedback from your seniors, etc., this might be a good opportunity to do that and figure out what you're going to implement going forward. Really familiarize yourself with all the information that we've just shared today, but things like the Zama mental health app, I think your players would really appreciate that. Like, hey, our coach in the ITA is thinking of us. Maybe they don't use it, but maybe you have one or two student athletes that are very appreciative of the fact that you've included that information for them. Obviously, we encourage them to start using their Dunlop promo code, ordering their balls if they haven't done so already, and really taking a look at all the other equipment options there and the discounts, because it is incredibly impressive what Dunlop are offering our coaches. So yeah, do that. Renew your team memberships. Obviously, I know for some programs, that's challenging working with the business office, etc. But to get access to your promo code, that's something you have to do, just so we keep that behind kind of the paywall. We had record number of memberships last year, which is great, and obviously the more teams we have involved, the more structure we have around that. There's less confusion and I guess lack of information or understanding of how the whole college season works, the rules, the events, the benefits that are offered to them. I mean, our list of benefits now, Lauren, compared to again when I was coaching 9 years ago, it's night and day.
Mhm.
Coaches really should take a few minutes as to familiarize themselves with that, start using more of the benefits. We have seen an uptick in that for sure. Things like award nominations, to see the increase in that has been outstanding. But yeah, just trying to get organized for the year ahead. Officials, again, if you're not familiar with where to identify officials, we're here to help. We, reach out to the ITA anytime. If you're confused about anything, you need to be pointed in the right direction. Maybe you need an introduction to something or someone. Our coach education, whether it's podcast or master classes, if you have new coaches coming on, especially the credentialing program. We've just so much going on, but I think a lot of our coaches still aren't as aware of it as maybe they need to be. I think maybe our younger coaches coming in, it's new to them, but coaches who have been around a long time, they might just think it's business as usual, and it's not. It's far from it. So that would be some reminders.
Sounds good. We're like a credit card company, like you don't even know what benefits you get with your credit card until you read the paper. There's tons of them. So coaches have to
Good
know their
reminder.
their membership benefits because there's some awesome things.
Yeah.
Um, well, thank you so much, Dave. Thank you for updating our coaches. One more plug for the coaches to enter the free trip to Italy. And I think I'm only saying it because I can't enter. So you need to do it so you can win. And yeah, good luck as you get started with your fall season or end your summer. And if you need anything from the ITA, you know how to find us, hopefully. So
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Lauren. Thanks for having me. Thanks for all your work. You're past your year anniversary now, and you've been doing a huge amount, and it's great to see our coach education infrastructure growing, and opportunities providing coaches, especially next generation coaches, and bringing more experienced coaches into the mix as well, whether it's mentorship program, our podcasts, and seeing those coaches giving back to the sport as well. It's been very heartwarming, I know, for both of us. But yeah, keep up the good work, coaches. Best of luck. We'll have more podcasts coming your way soon. Look forward to seeing many of you this fall at various events, and hopefully at our convention. So see you later.